people! My name's Angela and I'm here to show you about the EOS software. That's the ETC element, ion, and the EOS, and using them for busking. One of the issues that you have with trying to operate these boards in busking mode is that the board's actually meant for queue-driven events. So they're meant to record things into queues and then working off there, but there comes to be problems where you're trying to use a fader wing attached to the board with dynamically controlling elements. So that if you wanted to have a fader, say one for red, one for green, one for blue, it's very difficult to do unless you know the tricks exactly to do it. So I have figured it out, and I figured I'd share this with you guys. So the first step here is, of course, I'm using an emulator program, so I needed to have the ML controls available because we're going to be using that later. The virtual faders, because I don't have an actual fader wing, so I need to have this available. And of course the virtual keyboard here, which is what I'll be working off of to make this happen. So let's jump right in. We need to access our patch to add our instruments first. So I have the patch window here in desktop 2, and we'll go to channel 1, and we're going to set that type, or nope, we're not going to set that type. We're going to select channel 1 first, and now we're going to select the type. And so you're going to have to go into manufacture, and for this I'm going to be using a source for LED luster. So let's say you have them on left and right sides of the stage and you're looking to have them have multiple colors. So we're going to pick the luster, and I'm just going to pick the direct plus strobe option. Now we go back to favorites, and we see that it's there and it's also mapped to channel 1. But there's a problem. The problem is that inherently inside this profile, it's automatically linked as having all the attributes, red, green, blue, cyan, all those things, as 100 or 255, the 100% of the value. This causes a lot of issues when you're trying to mix things because you can't mix it when it's already at full. So we need to create a custom profile for our lights based off of this profile. So we're going to go down to here to edit, and we're going to click the luster profile, and we're going to do a copy. Once we do that, we can change this name to something else. We just click it to make it selected and do type, and I'm just going to make this into source for LED luster, and I'm going to call it modified, MOD here, to make sure it's differentiated. We also have to go into edit to actually go in there, and we have to set all of these colors or any attributes that you actually want to control to 0, because the home value of 255 is going to interfere with what we're trying to do. So I'm going to set all of these to 0, and just go up and down with the cursor here. Set the hue to 0, saturation 0, brightness to 0. Great. Do a return, and now we have to return again, and we actually have to set the new profile for channel 1. So channel 1's already selected. Click the mod, and we're done there. We're going to go back to our live, and I need to go back to virtual keyboard and go back into live this way. There we go. And so now we're ready to go. But you see here on channel 1, all these attributes are at their defaults of 100. This is how it would normally appear once you start patch it and go back in. So to clear this out, we need to do a sneak on this, which will automatically clear everything out. So you select it, you click sneak, press enter, and all those values are going to go away. Pretty nifty. Alright, so we're going to want to create a submaster with some information. Let's say we want to do 3 submasters with intensity linked to them. So we have one for red with intensity, one for green with intensity, one for blue with intensity, and just so we can raise red and green and blue as we're going. So what we want to do is, the way to get this trick to work is to go into blind. And when we're in blind, we need to pick our submaster 1. When you do this, it opens up a submaster editor, and you're going to be so you're actually editing directly in the submaster in blind mode. We're then going to do channel 1, enter, and that's going to bring up the attributes, of course, for that channel. And we're going to do full. Enter. Clear that out. Oh, no, we want to do channel 1 again. Then we want to do ML controls. And from here, what we really want to do is we want to click the maximum value for the attribute we want to use. So in this case, we want red to be maximum for this specific sub 1 fader that we're using. So we do that, and great. It's once we click max, it's already committed. We can go into label and change this to say red, for example, and then press enter, and we're good. To map this to a fader, we're going to go into our virtual faders here, and I probably should add virtual faders up here. It's probably going to make it easier. Virtual keyboard down here. Clear out of things. Probably go back to live just to make it easy. Do virtual fader there. Sub 1 load, and that's going to load it into our fader. The element does not have this dynamic mapping function for faders as the Ion and EOS have, but that's how you would load it onto there. You do sub 1 and then click the load button. If you have a physical fader wing, you press both bump buttons at the same time to do a load function. So now we have our first red. Now if we go to live table and we go to virtual faders down here, we bring this up, bam! It works just as expected. Now we can do this with multiple faders too and intelligently mix the controls together. So let's do a green here. So we're going to go back to blind mode. So I need my keyboard. Blind mode, and do sub 2, enter. Channel 1 is what we're affecting, and we're going to want it to be at full, enter. And we also want to control green, so we're going to do MHL controls, green to max, and that's all we need for that configuration. Go into label, set this to green, and enter, and now we have sub 2 already set up. Again, to map that out, I would go to virtual faders here, virtual keyboard here, sub 2 load. Oh, I guess you can do it in blind. And so we know we have a green fader. Last but not least, let's do our blue fader one more time. So we're going to go back to our live table there, do blind, sub 3, enter, channel 1, enter, and we'll just make it at full. And then we'll do ML controls, maximum for blue, and then we'll set our label to BLUE. Great. Gotta do our virtual faders again, virtual keyboard, sub 3, load that right there. I'll pull virtual tables to there, or keyboard first to go into live so you can see what I'm doing. Virtual faders, and I'll bring up red to half or so right there, and you'll see the reds at that value and the intensities at that value. Now if I bring up green, you see it brings up the intensity for you as you get to a certain point, and red is going to come up and go as it needs to in order to scale that for you. It does seem like the color scaling does not quite match the intensity scaling for that for some reason. It might be because of how it's mapped 255 to 100% in the background, but it's not quite linear there, which is why you're getting weird numbers. But this will work for mishmashing these colors all together for whatever you want to do. Now, let's say you want an intensity fader only. Well, it's simple. You just do another one. You just create another one, and you don't include a color. So, if we, just for an extra practice here, we're going to do live table, virtual keyboard, go back to blind. We'll do sub 4, enter, channel 1, enter, and then we're just going to do full. And that's all you got to do, and that becomes your master intensity fader, and then you have red, green, and blue separately. We're going to label that intensity, or INT for short. And again, we have to map it to a fader. So we're going to virtual keyboard sub for load, and then we have an intensity fader. I'll swap this to table, swap this to the keyboard, go back to live, go to fader. When I bring this up, it's going to lock us there, and then this is going to take over. And of course, if you had programmed these without the attributes on them, then, or without the intensity attribute, you'd only be affecting color. Now, you may ask yourself, well, this was pretty damn easy. You know, why would this ever be an issue? And the issue is that if you try doing this in live mode, you have to muck about with some really obnoxious things to get it to work. Because if you select an attribute, channel 1 red, enter, for example, or if you're selecting attributes and you go to try to record them, it'll record everything else as zeros, and you won't be able to color mix. So blind is the easiest way to do it without doing weird minus color encoder wheel pressing things on your console. Blind is the best way to do that. And from what I understand, you can do it for any ML control attribute that might be there. So if you have an X and Y axis, you can make submaster faders for X and Y. And you notice I didn't have to do any special programming for my submasters. They just are plain old submasters that are linear control, and you know, just as the standard as they come, and it works just fine. So that's how you do it to create your faders that will dynamically mix things for you, so you can busk and you can set things up that way in the Ion. And I hope this guide has been useful. If you have any questions, leave a comment in the description below. And I hope this has been a great video. Have a good one.